the oxygenator breaks, I'm gonna suffocate. If the water reclaimer breaks, I'll die of thirst. If the hab breaches, I'm just gonna kind of implode.
An astronaut left behind on Mars finds he has some time on his hands before there's any hope of a rescue, and so he has to use all of his training to survive on Mars.
I blew myself up.
The Martian.
I gotta figure out a way to grow 3 years worth of food here on a planet where nothing grows. Luckily, I'm a botanist.
Matt Damon marooned on Mars is either a great idea for a movie or the dream of everybody who hated the talented Mr. Ripley. If you were to maroon Matt Damon on Mars, what would be the lengths you would go to in order to retrieve him? Or would you just sit on your hands and start whistling?
In the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
Andy Weir wanted to write a book about space exploration using a recognizable version of current technology, and as part of that, thought about all the issues that could arise. And then he realized, hey, it's way more interesting if things go wrong, and so he invented a main character whose hopes and dreams could be dashed at the end of each chapter. Give him a mountain to climb, have him reach the top, and then find the mountain collapses in on itself because of some coked up moles have hollowed out the whole thing. Weir's book, The Martian, very quickly became a bestseller on its release in 2011, and soon Hollywood came calling. Martian, Martian, Martian.
I hate every one of you.
Screenwriter Drew Goddard had adapted the novel into a screenplay and was to direct, but was offered another directing gig. So 20th Century Fox, having the rights to the hottest book of the day, needed to find somebody who could handle the drama and the effects. Someone like, Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott himself was busy with another project, so they thought about hiring another Ridley Scott-like director, Diddley Trot, a director who they found did not actually exist. So then they decided to go back to Ridley Scott and ask if he wanted to do it. Ridley Scott accepted on the condition that Diddley Trot was totally cool with that. But as we have already established, Diddley Trot was a figment of my imagination and also, crucially, not a member of the Directors Guild of America.
They're much finer, and they should be ideal for chem analysis.
Oh wow, did everybody hear that? Mark just discovered dirt.
Mark Watney is a botanist who really hates disco music, and so he signed on to a mission to Mars just so he could be assured of never having to listen to any disco music ever again, which really does sound like a plan with no flaws. In 2035, NASA has sent the Ares 3 mission to Mars, but a storm threatens the safety of the crew and the mission is curtailed. Mark Watney is lost, presumed dead. Back home on Earth, NASA has already announced his death, and the Ares 3 crew are on their way home on the mothership Hermes.
But Mark Watney is dead.
Except Watney's alive.
Surprise!
Injured, but definitely not filling in life insurance claim forms just yet.
If I have to listen to any more god-awful disco music.
Watney knows if he can find a way to survive until the next planned mission, which is still years away, he might have a chance. And here's how the Martian works. Watney outlines a problem, and then because he's so smart, he will find a solution. Sometimes things work out, and then sometimes things go wrong. He works out that he has enough rations to last a certain amount of time. As a botanist, he works out that he can grow potatoes, and also how he can create the water to irrigate them, and also how to use human poo-poo-poo-poo-poo-poo to fertilize the Martian soil. Basically, he works out how to change the chemical composition of Martian dust so that it's exactly the same as a 50-meter radius around a camping site. How do you like them potatoes?
Nothing bad has ever happened from lighting hydrogen on fire.
Back on Earth, they notice that the satellite images of the Ares 3 mission have changed, cluing them in on Watney's survival.
Dear America, remember that astronaut we killed and had a really nice funeral for? Turns out he's alive and we left him on Mars. Our bad. Sincerely, NASA.
We have the head of NASA, Teddy.
Don't say bring him home alive, Vincent.
You know what? These interviews aren't easy. So God forbid I try to say something proactive and positive.
Director of Mars missions, Vincent.
It'll be high enough that there's practically no air.
You want to send them into space under a tarp?
Yes.
Bruce at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Annie, NASA's PR head. And Mitch, flight director of the Hermes mothership.
I'm the one who decides what's best for the crew. They deserve to know.
You know, he makes it to the end of the film alive. I'm sure nobody was more surprised than Sean Bean. But he is also the only character to lose their job. As the problems of Mark Watney and his rescue escalate, we need to meet bigger and nerdier geniuses to solve the cascading piles of potato-fueled poo that have to be dealt with.
This stapler is the Hermes, and you are... I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Teddy. I'm the director of NASA.
Mark Watney is not a one-trick pony, but if he did, that trick, remember, would be growing potatoes in his own poo. But he also devises a simple way to send basic messages back to Earth.
Yes! Yes!
Which will eventually turn into a larger text messaging service. Because his phone provider is based on Mars, iPhone users will see red bubbles in group chats. A planned resupply mission goes, like Watney's potatoes, a little caca. Enter the Chinese Space Agency, who offer a top-secret booster rocket to NASA. Well, okay, this is science fiction, but it's also a film where some people do disagree with each other, but not a single person is a selfish, malicious asshole operating on petty levels or motivated by greed. Again, it's science fiction. Also, the source novel keeps Watney fairly chipper, rather than being consumed by depression, and so the film version, being a fairly faithful adaptation, keeps things positive for Watney most of the time.
I accidentally blew up the hab.
But unfortunately, all of Commander Lewis's disco music still survived.
On the mothership Hermes, the rest of Ares 3 mission are unaware of Watney's survival. Commander Lewis has made the tough call, but then they find out there's an opportunity for Hermes to return to Mars and retrieve Watney alive and well. But it does mean the crew would have been in space for a lot longer than they'd originally planned, which is fine and dandy, except it means more time for people to confuse Commander Lewis with Bryce Dallas Howard, without her being around to correct them. On board the ship is Bucky Barnes, Ant-Man's bestie Luis, and Sue Storm. On Mars, Watney amuses himself by invading everybody else's privacy, going through the personal belongings of his crewmates, who for some reason have not password protected anything. Apparently, out of the 6 crew members of the Ares 3 mission, the only one to have thought to bring any music along is the disco-obsessed Commander Lewis, meaning if Watney wants to chill, it's going to have to be to whichever late 70s pop tunes were still cheap enough for Fox to license.
You think he means it like, are you kidding me? Or like, are you kidding me?
I think it might be the second one.
Watney's rescue hinges on him living off minimum rations long enough for Hermes to be in a high orbit around Mars, by which time he also has to make an arduous trek to the landing site of a future mission, which conveniently has a prepped rocket ready to go. In order for the vessel to get into high orbit, Watney has to strip the craft to the bare minimum. He has to get rid of the nose cone, the spare seats, the windows, and the coffee machine. But Watney is saved. Huzzah! So now the crew of the Hermes can travel back to Earth and have every argument about the air conditioning temperature in the rec room ended when Watney casually mentions again how they all left him behind on Mars. That's a 200 million kilometer guilt trip.
So the plan is for me to use that to go into orbit just as the Hermes is passing, and I guess they catch me?
The Martian is one of my favourite movies of the 2010s, a unique blend of adventure, science, cooperation, and the only villain in the movie being bad luck. With Ridley Scott on board and firing on all cylinders, there's so very little to criticise. Scott's made a lot of films, most of them are meticulously crafted, though that doesn't mean his filmography doesn't modulate between fantastic and some less successful movies. Here's a film that is mainly filmed on massive sound stages in Hungary, with some limited location filming in Jordan. There are lots of computer effects, wire work, and green screen, but it's all done so well that it is mostly unobtrusive. Much of Watney's storyline is just Robinson Crusoe, but set on Mars. But crucially, for copyright reasons, is not Robinson Crusoe on Mars. So let's just enjoy a film about a mission to Mars that has no aliens or a mysterious force suddenly killing most of the crew. In fact, nobody dies in this movie. Nobody is double dealing or backstabbing. The worst of humanity displayed in this film is that somebody will occasionally get snarky, like this Wunderkind.
This won't exactly be an Algonquin round table of snappy repartee.
But it's just one of those films. You'll just notice all these people in almost every role. Nick Mohammed, Maclenzie Davis, Benedict Wong, Donald Glover, Kirsten Wiig, Jeff Daniels, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Michael Pena, Kate Mara, Sebastian Stan, Jessica Chastain, or maybe it's Bryce Dallas Howard. Oh, dang it! And of course there's this guy called Matt something or other. And if you want to get really granular, it's even got potatoes grown in Steven Seagal. Whether or not the film's scientific accuracy is 100% perfect isn't really a deal breaker for me, since it feels believable enough when extrapolating current technology, apart from the fact nobody's playing Roblox. There was a brief period of intelligent space films, or at least films that aspired to be perceived as smart. Gravity tried to keep it real for anybody who wasn't a physicist. Interstellar tried to keep it real for anybody who wasn't a philosopher, and The Martian tried to keep it real for anybody who wasn't into Philadelphia's vibrant disco scene. The Martian was perhaps the most believable of this sort of film and proved that nobody else was even in the same space. There have been many Mission to Mars films or near-future space missions, both before and after this, and many of them involve some unusual force that kills the crew off one by one. The Martian is also a survival adventure film that becomes a rescue adventure with a large cast of top-flight actors, even if they're in fairly small roles. But of course this is a film that is anchored by Matt Damon, who basically has to carry the bulk of the film's scenes with only himself to play off of. I said off of.
Staple came out.
Watney is an intelligent guy, but also a personable one and an everyman, if we assume an everyman should have a half a dozen degrees. The only degree I have is of the third type of burns that I got after trying to grab a slice of pizza from a pizza oven with my bare hands. It just looks so nice.
Mark Watney, space pirate.
The Martian is a film with brains and a lot of heart, a mix that somebody like Ridley Scott handled marvellously.
I'm alive. Obviously.
Matt Damon doesn't go mad from loneliness and isolation or constant exposure to disco, and he at no time fashions fellow Martian colonists out of cardboard so he has somebody to talk to. Nor does he ever make a volleyball his best friend because nobody thought to bring a ball to Mars. And we never got to see Watney address the Grand Martian Council of Potatoes.
Tell that asshole no barrel rolls.
Copy that, Mav.
Of course, nothing's perfect. The main failing of the film can be traced back to the source material. It's an Andy Weir story, so apart from the main character, almost everybody else has at best one personality trait, and that's it. And in this film, almost all of them are just variations on ultra nerd. I mean, there's another great film made from an Andy Weir book, Project Hail Mary, one of my absolute faves from the first half of 2026. It's one guy with a bit of a character, and everybody else seems to pluck a random character trait out of a hat full of stereotypes. In The Martian, Mark Watney seems to be such a twat that he forgot to bring an SD card with some of his favourite types of music, death metal polka.
I know that sucks.
Whether or not the book's author realised it, much of The Martian ended up being about the power of friendships, alliances, and even rivals cooperating with each other.
Because I like the way Fastest Man in the History of Space Travel sounds.
There are other good space disaster movies, maybe something like Gravity, but more relevant to The Martian is Ron Howard's 1995 classic Apollo 13, which was based on a real space disaster.
We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that.
In Apollo 13, those scenes of the NASA eggheads working the problem do seem like they're the inspiration for Andy Weir's work.
If we go remote, we can lose the control panels, the secondary, tertiary comm systems.
It's a film made for people who think the best parts of the Bond movies are Q's briefings.
Now, pay attention, please.
Forget the girls and the guns, it's all about the gadgets. The Martian is a rare bird, a space disaster movie that's a feel-good movie. It can't help but put a smile on the face of almost anyone.
Now pay attention, because this could save your life.
The Martian was a big hit when it was released in 2015 and became Ridley Scott's highest grossing movie. I also think it's one of his best. Of course, how many more movies do we need where Matt Damon needs to be rescued?
I did in fact survive on a deserted planet by farming in my own shit.
If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below or check out some of our other videos.
Chances are we go home, they'll court-martial us.
Oh yeah, there's that.
And for the rest of you guys, I guarantee they will never send you back up here again.
Good.